Tom Hanks' assistant was a second customer of Discommon. I just noticed that I was selling it to CAA 3100 Avenue of the Arts, Los Angeles. And I was like, I'm going to Google this. Her name was Suki Waterhouse. And I was like, she's a badass. She must be. So I Googled her and she came up on IMDb as Tom Hanks' assistant. So I just wrote her an email. And I was like, he's for Tom Hanks. And so he's got a bunch of our products. And then when we finished that knife, I ended up sending it to him. And he's got one of the largest typewriter collections in the world. And he wrote me a typewriter thank you letter that says, Neil, this knife, I can do so many things with it. Cut vines in the jungle, defend myself, stab things, open things. Something like that.
Welcome back to the PTO podcast, where we interview people who make a living doing what they like to do. Today we're talking to Neil Ferrier, a Scottish native with a multifaceted background that includes collegiate rowing at Clemson University, go Tigers, and 11 years in advanced product development at Oakley, as he'll refer to it as being able to drop the oak bomb. Neil now leads Discommon, an industrial design firm that specializes in a diverse range of projects, everything from yachts and medical devices to unique takes on e-bikes, wallets, razors, duffel bags, and Iron Mando helmets. It's clear Neil has mastered the art of integrating his enthusiasm and skills into his daily life, shaping an environment where passion and work are indistinguishable. If you don't like Neil after this podcast, we don't like you.
Riding through the streets like a fair with a fun pass. Brooklyn, stand up, yeah, you know that we run that.
It's funny. I don't know if I've ever managed an elevator pitch properly. I'm a guy that just decided to cut his own path with what felt right. But I currently own an industrial design and manufacturing firm called Discommon. You want to maybe tell everybody that we've known each other for an absurdly long amount of time now?
Yeah, so we've known Neil,
we
Sawyer
work
and
8
I.
feet from each other.
Yeah, we've known Neil for 3 years, right? That sounds about right.
No,
I think it's 4.
Oh,
4?
dude, you guys have known each other way longer.
Okay.
But it's been a very intense
It's over
courtship.
4.
Yeah.
I have watched you guys progress from being children into
Young adults.
near adults.
Young adults.
Near to they just
profitable
graduated
business.
college age.
That's exciting.
A functioning one.
A functioning one. It's functioning right now. It's not profiting.
But yeah, we met Neil when we were in high school. He may or may not have convinced us to drop out.
No, we were in college.
We were finishing high school, going into first year of college.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think one of our first projects was actually, I think, the last maybe few months of high school going into the first year of college. Dropped out, and now we're in the same HQ together. Pretty funny.
Yeah, we met Neil, and we were very young, and Neil saw our videos and was like, you guys want to make videos for me?
These guys are above mediocre.
Right.
I might be able to afford them. I might not.
And then as
That's
soon as we walked in the door, he went, "Oh yeah, I can definitely afford these guys because
there are children walking into my office,
hey.
and they do work with handheld cameras."
We were like, "Dude, you have a motorcycle in your office? Like, are you a billionaire?" Like that was our mindset. Like,
and in my head, I'm like, "I have a motorcycle in my office because I'm too scared to ride it."
Yeah. And then he offered us like $2,000 a month to make him videos, and to
my credit, I offered you a retainer day one.
I know.
That was pretty strong.
And I
instead of
told
taking
Neil,
advantage of you.
You could have absolutely screwed
yeah,
him.
and I told Neil we'd
$400 a month.
Yeah. And we told Neil I did, sorry, not Sawyer. I told him, well, we would just work for free because I was so excited.
And then me and Jake had a convo right after he said that.
I think I had a convo with you and you said it. I was like, well, here's step one of the business education.
Don't do that. And I was like, okay.
No.
So if anything, I'm more of a stickler for money now than you.
Yeah.
Usually aimed at me. I mean, I grew up in a town of 4,000 people. The golf course was 150 yards from my front door. My dad was like the most cliched Scottish thing ever. He developed golf courses. But I was convinced that I was American in my soul, in that I was obsessed with the NBA. Like posters of players on probably even across my ceiling in my bedroom. And I just was utterly sure I was going to play in the NBA until I realized I was not good. But I played a lot of basketball.
Did you find out now, like a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, like when I was 38. Yeah.
When we played.
I was still harboring dreams of being in the NBA. I was going to be the oldest guy ever. But I played a lot of golf. I mean, it was a very Scottish upbringing, but I was also very, very fortunate because my dad worked a lot internationally, and my parents had my dad mostly had this effortless view that the world was small, and that you didn't need to be confined locally. He would often go for day meetings to London, and I think he would back me up in saying that I recall a few times when he took an early shuttle to New York and was on the red eye back that night. I mean, he was okay with the world being accessible.
That's like very much you in spirit too, though, with Greenville, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, my dad ended up having his own company that really was that he made up, and I sort of rebelled against it. I didn't want to do the family golf business, and I often laugh because I've basically completely rebuilt my dad's business, but just in product. And now I tell as many stories as I grew up hearing my dad tell at dinners, and he took me to business dinners and all of those things. And already, like, all my kids do is hear stories, and they get to do or see fascinating things. So it's pretty funny how you can mimic what you grew up in. I've got some rough memories of high school.
Were you bullied?
Yeah, I was bullied. Yeah.
Me too, Neil.
I was
Well, middle school, not high school.
I was really bad
What's
at
so funny
sport.
about that, Teddy?
I was a chubby kid, and I was scared a lot.
Right.
And like I would never be picked for a team or whatever. And I think it's why I found basketball and golf and almost like obscure sports. So like leave me alone. Let me find something that I can carve my own path with. But I just had an amazing. I went to stay with a friend who I grew up with, going to school in Portugal this summer. He's got a hotel there now. And we had a really emotional chat one night where he was like, was I one of the ones that bullied you? And he wasn't, but he was part of that gang. But it was really amazing to kind of like revisit high school, because I do have either a chip off of my shoulder or hurt from that. But I also got a lot of drive from it. I was an overachieving, like I did well at school.
So academically, like
Academically
you
overachieving,
exceeded.
yeah.
Okay.
That plus art.
Right.
And I was really
right.
the art studio was like my safe zone for sure. And
It seems like the art is like still a safe zone for you. Like it's like an expression.
No, the problem is I've hired Kevin, and now I just feel completely fucking. Kevin's my head designer for Discommon, and if you could see the faces that he makes if I ever try and draw something, that I've actually just reverted back to basically caveman gesticulations to try and convince my ideas, because then he can't even shit talk him anymore. I actually did draw something once that I put a lot of effort into an iPad Pro, and his first reaction was, what the fuck are you doing? Did you have somebody else do this? Like,
Right.
where did this come from? And I was like, well, I actually put effort in.
Well, I read.
I could draw once.
I read an interview that you did too. That you basically were at a crossroads when you finished high school, where you were like, okay, I can either go to art school or I can be an engineer.
Can I just, sorry, I just need to pause everybody here just for a second, because, the first people ever listening to this, I'm extremely proud right now of my little nephews who have actually done research on all of this. This is throwing me a little bit. They've clearly read into
See
things.
this motherfucker?
That's terrifying.
So you
Look, front and back.
You were at this crossroad where you were like, okay, I can either do art school or I can do engineering school, and you chose engineering school because it's a safer route. You can get a job out of it.
That, and the true answer is that I do have a somewhat of an inferiority complex all the time, and I just thought I'm not going to be good enough. You have to put a portfolio in for to do design school. And I remember I read these car magazines, Max Power and Evo at the time, and they would often have stuff from like students or drawing competitions and stuff like that. And I would see people draw, because if I was doing design, I wanted to do cars. And like the stuff that was submitted, I couldn't draw like that. So I just assumed that I wouldn't be good enough. And I had that was a problem for me a lot. But I was good at math and I was very good at physics. So engineering seemed easy. Our university, Strathclyde in Scotland, had an exchange program with 3 universities. I was very competitively rowing at the time, doing crew. I can never pronounce it for Americans. Rowing. And pulling big long sticks in a boat. I think I was pretty good at it. I think my friends would say I was, but it was cold as shit in Scotland. We were in a really, really rough river. We used to go out, if it was anywhere near November, which is called Guy Fawkes Night in the UK. It's when you do fireworks, November the 5th. Anywhere a month either side of that, we got shot with fireworks whenever we were on the river, and sometimes BB guns and other pellet guns and stuff like that. Like it was a rough part of Glasgow. And then in the winter when you were rowing, the water would freeze in your oar. And then a girl that I knew at the time, she did an exchange in Clemson. She was a rower, She's like, it's hot, and they have 600 miles of shoreline. And I was like, well, that's pretty easy.
Wait, did we just dance over the fact that people would shoot BB guns at you while you were rowing?
The worst was fireworks. We really, I mean,
Why? Did they just hate rowers?
They're
or
called
they-
NEDs, non-educated delinquents. It was a very, like, they wear 3-stripe Adidas pants or Kappa pants. Basically, like, Sawyer's outfit of choice if he was given it.
Oh man.
Dude,
And
what?
they basically have nothing better to do with their time, so they cause trouble.
So they were like, fuck
you
these
guys might
rowers.
refer to them as rednecks. I don't know.
Did you find a
The white
peaky
trash.
hand.
I
a
think.
hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us
talk about that.
Tell them about that.
Well, so the Clyde, which is the river that we rode on, God, I'm smirking because, I mean, it was just, I knocked my roommate, my best friend, in once, and he got Veal's disease, which comes from rat's piss. I mean,
So it was that gross.
it was one of the
It
most
was that
polluted
gross.
rivers in Europe.
Holy shit.
And so we go out pretty early in the morning, and like, I was fucking fast at rowing because I was continually scared. And the faster that we could get done, the less chance I had of getting shot. Usually with a firework from the bank. And we had a French guy. He was the first one to get shot. Greek. I apologize. Georgios. He was the first guy to get shot with a proper pellet gun. And we're in the middle of a push, and he just yells, "Oh shit! I've been shot! I've been shot!" And we're like, "Georgios, shut the fuck up! Like, keep rowing." And he's like, "No, I've been shot." And we're like, "I don't know. Your English isn't. I know you're tired." And then like Kenny, my buddy, just gets this fucking, there's like blood coming down his shoulder, and he got shot by a pellet gun from like a 13-year-old at the side of the river.
Jeez.
So yeah, I didn't want to row there anymore.
So then you were like, you hear about Clemson.
Yeah,
It's
and
this
I
beautiful
still,
weather.
I mean, this is such a 17, 18-year-old thing to say, but I showed up. It was the sorority drive thing, rush. Clemson's just beautiful weather, sunny,
on a lake.
full of girls on a lake, and I had a Scottish accent, and I was like, well, this is a lot better than Glasgow. I think I might stay here.
So so when you came to Clemson, you developed a side hustle of painting sneakers for the athletes.
I did. So, these are the things that make you stop and check yourself. I guess I did do kind of entrepreneurial things. I made a really dope seat. I used a exhaust shop in Easley to bend tubes and then powder coat it black, and we put a racing seat on it. And I still want to make them again one day. It's like a lounge chair, but it uses a car race seat. I called it N1 Industries. And then my mum didn't let me have any Air Jordans growing up, so now I've got a pretty solid Air Jordan collection.
I would say so.
But it started back then where, I don't know, I think I saw like an early YouTube video. You could use these Angelus leather paints, and I decided I would start painting shoes for myself. And I ended up doing like numbers and patterns and girlfriends' names for the Clemson football players. And I mean, I made pretty good drinking money. It wasn't that expensive to drink at Tiger Town Tavern.
No, it's not.
$2 PBRs for
Triple
life.
T's is what we call it.
So you get a master's in mechanical engineering,
Mm-hmm.
and then you send in like 3 different job applications at Oakley because
7.
you liked 7.
So what I wanted to say too to that was I also read that you harassed them.
I harassed.
What does that look like? Like how did you harass Oakley?
I guess 7 applications?
Well, it was a different tech generation then, but only waiting 3 weeks until I applied for the job
Send in
again
another
was probably some form of harassment. I found email addresses. I chased people.
So you knew, like, I want to work at Oakley.
I was doing the same with Ping. Funnily enough, Aerial Atom, the Aerial cars had just started at that point in time. I'd read about them in Top Gear magazine. I did things that I had a vague familiarity with. I had used Oakleys all throughout my rowing career, and I had saved up to buy them at Gleneagles. Gleneagles had an Oakley stand in their pro shop. So like I had familiarity with it, and my dad's business partner had visited the headquarters, which is a fucking spaceship. And I don't
looks
know if
like
you're
a-
cutting B-roll into this, but you should cut
I think we have a video.
Oakley headquarters batshit.
Looks like
crazy.
Star Wars.
Well, so Oakley wasn't necessarily though an end all be all for you when you were like thinking of where you wanted to
It
go.
was definitely. I would have done car stuff, but I was scared that I would not have loved cars as much if it became my job. Oakley was far ahead because I just thought, they're rebels. They don't do things normally. I can see engineering. I can see art. And funnily enough, Oakley's mantra is engineering wrapped in art. So it was a very natural position for me.
And you're young at the time, right? 22?
22, yeah.
So what was it like when you got that, the email or whatever it was back
No, I
that
remember
said
it.
we're hiring you? What was that like?
I was dating Meg at the time, and I actually was visiting them in America, and I got the offer, and I countered the offer and asked for $5,000 more, and they said no.
That's awesome.
It was insane. But the best part of that entire process was my dad's, very business savvy, and he's like, we should get an immigration lawyer with their immigration lawyer, and my parents paid for it. Oakley had to get me a visa, and our immigration lawyer caught an error that Oakley's lawyer did that would have probably got me kicked out of the US.
Wow.
I forget the details,
Shout
but
out,
5 to 10 years.
That's crazy.
Kicked out for. There was just something wrong with what they did. I can't remember the details.
So,
Showing up on the first day was, I don't know if I was emotional, but I went from 4,000 people in Scotland to Irvine, California. I bought a Mini Cooper S.
Did they have the tank
I can't
when you got there
imagine
first?
No,
or
we
no?
bought the tank.
Yeah, that shit's
I was part
crazy.
of that. That was insane. We had to print it out U.S. Customs documentation, and we ended up printing it on our wall. The design team was involved in everything. I mean, we built a secret bar, literally that half the company never knew about, and some disgruntled employees who thought there was a secret bar called the ATF on us. ATF raided Oakley because we were brewing beer, and so we were manufacturing alcohol. And we had to let the
wait,
ATF.
you said an employee did that?
Yeah, fucking.
What a fucking chode! What?
Because they weren't.
Works
Because
there.
we had our
That's so
secret
not
bar, and
chill.
really the design and marketing team only used it.
Stupid.
So,
But it. Sorry, I forget what you asked.
I was gonna say so we.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, the customs declaration for the tank was epic.
Yes.
Because I was part of the group that did all of the military and Department of Defense development. So we were developing for special forces and police, everything. Our customs documentation for the tank was just signed DOD. Which was, you want to talk about, balling.
Yeah.
Department of Defense was our
Oakley
sponsor.
was like, "Fuck you."
We show up
It's
to
probably completely illegal for me to say on a podcast.
yeah, we can cut this, but
Fuck 'em.
we showed up to the HQ with him, and I'm like, this place looks like a Star Wars ride in Disney World or
fucking
something.
crazy.
And they just have a fucking tank track.
Yeah.
There's a
would drive
track
it.
for the tank.
We would buy
They had a BMX track too, right?
pump track. Yeah, we
Yeah.
would buy caravans and old boats on Craigslist and run over them in the tank.
That's crazy.
That's pretty cool.
That's
That's what we need to start doing here.
We need a tank.
I mean, I think Oakley's where I got most of my sense of mischief.
Yeah.
I know that everybody can't see this whole building, but for being a place that was relatively affordable to execute and not too excessive, I mean, it's rad. We've got race cars in here, basketball hoop, cold plunge. We've got a bar. This is a very special sort of second home for me.
It's become kind of like a business fraternity house. That's
Absolutely.
It's pretty fun though, seeing when people come in, especially for pitching them. They get.
They're very excited.
That
That
was
like,
somebody that
wow.
came from Bose yesterday, the headphones company, and she was 5 feet in the door before she went, holy cow, what is this place,
Well, it's a true testament to your design skills. So we talked about kind of growing up, bullying, whatnot. I think we can all relate on a certain degree.
Teddy can't relate to that.
No, I was actually really awkward in middle school.
Were you bullied though?
Were?
Yeah. Yeah. But
Teddy just went, oh.
yeah. No. But I'm curious, I know that was when I kind of got into videography and kind of did that sort of stuff because it felt like something that I could do. And when I was finally getting praise for something, it was motivating. I'm curious if you kept that, I don't know. I think anger when used right can be a good motivating factor.
I didn't get any fire at the time. I mean, maybe going to Oakley was part of the fire. I was really saved by the fact that I got extremely fit in college doing crew, and from somebody that had been teased or been told that they were fat, that felt like a superpower. Fuck all y'all, I can do this and I can do it well. And college felt like a fresh start from that standpoint. But throughout Oakley and even career now, I think at its most raw form, I'm still throwing some kind of middle finger to a hurt that's a drive forward, basically.
So funny enough, you kind of started even going into the second part of the question, I was like curious, like kind of how that drive, middle finger attitude, like kind of served you when you went into like a corporate environment.
Well, I don't think there's a successful entrepreneur, and in the, you know, in the logarithmic scale of success, I'm successful because I can pay my mortgage and, you know, live.
Right. Success looks different to everyone.
But like, it takes an absurd drive, you know. Like I've remortgaged houses at points in time and stuff like that. Like you can't be normal. There has to be damage. There has to be some kind of trauma that fuels you, I think. I don't think you get to be some completely even and balanced person and just decide that you're going to do something that's so unsafe. There's something that you're fighting. I think I'm confident in that statement. Like I don't think I just bullshitted that. Like I think I'm comfortable with that.
I think that's legit.
And I don't think you're generalizing people with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
you're not.
I think that's a thing.
Everyone that's kind of started their own business probably has a screw loose.
And if they don't, good for them. But typically,
Teddy's dad, I bet you have some of the similar stuff for me. So Teddy's dad was really senior at Burton and at Under Armour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bet you're living up to something. Because your dad had stories, and your dad had dudes, and those dudes were all like, fucking Teddy's dad. Like, he's the boss.
I wasn't going to be the guy who was like, oh, yeah, like, what the fuck happened to your son?
My dad had to. I remember a story. I'm sitting at dinner one night, and my dad was explaining to somebody how he had to figure out how to land a Harrier jump jet in Scotland because the Crown Prince of... I'm going to remember it. I'm going to forget. Somewhere in the Middle East. Wanted to fly his own Harrier jump jet and land it at Glen Eagles for a charity golf tournament. And like,
try living up to that.
The government were like, you can't. So he had to land it at RAF Lookers, which is a really quite a famous RAF airbase in Scotland. And fucking Sir Jackie Stewart went and picked him up. Like,
that's crazy.
I'm sitting with stories like this, and so I had to do crazy, or else I was just going to feel like I was lost in like the shallows, you know?
That was totally a chip on my shoulder. Like growing up, I was like, am I going to be that guy? Or am I going to have cool stories like my dad? Like to me, I was like, my dad is the coolest guy ever. I'm like, am I going to be able to live up to that?
But I will say also, and I was thinking about things that I have said on podcasts or in interviews before or haven't, but Max Busser, who's an incredible independent watchmaker in Switzerland, he's got this quote. If I say it enough, it might become mine accidentally because I say it all the time, but I do always credit him. A creative adult is a child that survived. And I fucking love my appetite for mischief. Like, I'm 39 turning 40. I'm as fit as I was in college, and I'm as game for anything as I was then. And it's not running away from aging. It's maintaining like youthful excitement.
So just to like recap your life, right? You started out in Scotland. You had a dad to live up to, and you're in high school. And
by the way, a very supportive.
No, yeah.
And hey, we love your dad.
Love your dad.
Neil's dad's an amazing guy.
Neil's dad's the shit.
Sometimes the most supportive people are also the best competition.
Exactly. And so you're doing that, and then you're rowing, and you're
I need a Negroni break at some point in time.
And you're rowing, and you're like, I don't like rowing here because there's dead bodies in the water. And
we did skip past the hand that we found in the river once, but that was a real thing too.
And so then you're like, there's this place called Clemson, South Carolina. It's sunny. It's awesome. You go there for an engineering degree, and while you're there, you're learning engineering all while, painting sneakers and getting the best of both. You're doing creative work and you're doing engineering. And then you finally get the job at Oakley that you harassed them to get. So how was that when you started out there? What did you do?
Well, I started on a $70,000 a year salary, and when I left 11 years later, I think I was on 89 grand salary. So I didn't do very well there. There's a reason I started supplementing it. Oakley offset its shitty salaries by great work environment. Or
here's
like
a tank.
Lot of fun stuff. Yeah.
Ignore your raise.
It is insane thinking back to the fact that I don't think anybody knew how to manage me, but I never became a manager. I just did what I did, which was create wild shit. So my first boss, Carlos, was an absolute legend, and he still critiques shit that we do today. He still texts me. He's like, I just want to ask you a question about that bottle opener. You couldn't get a ball hair past Carlos. Like, if you wanted to sneak something by or wanted to half-ass something, my intolerance for mediocrity was somewhere inside of me anyway, but Carlos like beat that into to us. But I was in a group that to begin with was research and development. It became advanced product development. And if we had an idea and it could feasibly become sunglasses, we were allowed to research it. I have been to a military university in Xiamen, China, where they were like cutting heads off of chickens in the street. And we walked inside and it was one of the most incredibly funded things I've seen in my life. And they were teaching us how to injection mold titanium into metal injection molding machines that like the Swiss and Germans couldn't even imagine having at the time, through to literally picking up a phone, calling Lamborghini's front desk and being like, my name's Neil, I work in the design team at Oakley, and you just used the fucking superpower word and I got through to somebody.
word.
And I was like, hey, I gotta learn, you drop an O-bomb. That's what we said. And I got to speak to somebody in design. I asked to come see their carbon fiber facility, and they were like, with open arms.
Did they ask for proof?
No.
So you just rolled up and
Yeah,
then they
Neil.
got
So
Yeah.
word of
I mean, I
advice.
emailed them afterwards at
Word of
oakley.com.
advice.
But
Okay,
Use the
yeah.
word Oakley. And you can get into any manufacturer.
can you imagine doing work in a time when like there was no ability to gut check or fact check things?
I think I'd make a lot more money.
Were
you happy there, do you think? Or do you think you were there for 10 years, 11 years. Like, were you happy there or were you just complacent there?
6 years having the time of my life. Then some stuff happened. We got bought by Luxottica, which is a giant Italian corporation. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm so attached to Italy. Negronis, Aperol Spritzes, driving there. I spent a lot of time there.
You were at the acquisition meeting, weren't you?
Almost not. No, there was an acquisition. No, the acquisition happened behind closed doors with Jim Gennard. And we were one of the sort of first prongs of the spear that went to, it's a tiny little place called Agordo in northeast of Italy. And the design and development team went. We partied so fucking hard in Venice the night before that not only did we see daylight, we saw people going to work. And we actually had to call Meg, and she went on an early version of Google Maps, and we were drunkenly speaking street names to her, and she was navigating us out of Venice. So I'm assuming a lot of people won't have been to Venice, but there are no streets, there's alleyways. And we're doing this in the dark. After playing, I think we all ended up in the canal
After
at some point in
taking
time.
a bunch of oak bombs downtown.
Yeah, just dropping oak bombs.
No,
Yeah,
that was
big
Los
fat
Angeles.
oak bombs.
We had the walk of every nightclub in West
Yeah.
Hollywood because of Oakley's. Like, it is an amazing transactional item.
Yeah. Oh,
you get
yeah.
somebody's girlfriend some sick snowboarding goggles, and you can walk
Well,
any
Oakley
line
is
in any
so
nightclub.
pop culture, especially at
Yeah.
their prime. I mean, that was like what everyone was doing. So, but you guys get acquired and you're celebrating. You're just going.
But then we got a pretty heavy meeting that day, and Luxottica was so much less free and creative than us, and it changed. And I got actually an Italian boss for a period of time. She lived in Italy. I was at Oakley, answering to fucking nobody except for a woman that I spoke to, not even on a video call. And I was like, well, this is weird. And I look back, and a lot of people didn't really know what to do with Neil because I wasn't really part of a big group. I was just off trying to make things real. But like, the low-key epic thing was I was just continually building skill set. But I didn't really know if I was going to do anything with it at the time, because if you imagine me trying to write a CV, resume, like, what would it have looked like? Goes around the world and learns a bunch of shit? I wasn't like a head of product or some BS title.
You were just dabbling in everything.
I was just learning. And
Were you like throwing like patents on the resume and stuff?
it just wouldn't have looked like any resume that you would relate to, Teddy. Like, it just would have been like, Neil works in R&D, has been stuck there for 9 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But the truth was, Neil having a fucking field day exploring the world, learning how to make anything.
Well, it's kind of cool because I think you like took that experience by the balls and you were like, I'm getting paid to learn. And that's like what you did.
Yeah. But I had a boss that I look at as a very negative experience after that. I can look back with some compassion now and think he probably just didn't know how to manage me. But it was gaslighting. It was challenging. It was demeaning in many ways, and it made me think I'm not as good as I hope I am. but I was freelancing by that point in time as well.
So what sparked that though? That's the part I've never understood.
Drinking.
Like how did you get approached?
Again,
by
it's
that?
similar to like getting Due South
Just kind of
Due South
happened.
Coffee. The head of Macallan, Ken Greer, who still a dear friend, he met Colin Baden, the CEO of Oakley, at a luxury brands conference. They both hit it off on what they both made. You know, we like to drink at Oakley. My like third day there, I got given a Hummer H1 and told to go get a keg of beer. We partied a lot. And the number of times I could say that I've driven from Los Angeles to work in the morning in Orange County to make it to my desk by 8:50 is a lot of numbers. But they met, and Ken showed up at Oakley with a bunch of bottles of Macallan, 25 and 30-year-old, like they were Coke. Coca-Cola, not Kings.
Right.
Now they're
Coca-Cola,
more valuable than
Coca-Cola.
cocaine.
Sure, yeah.
And we drank in our secret bar, and you know, there were only 4 or 5 of us in there, and he asked if we could make the world's most badass hip flask, and it just got handed off to me. And I got paid in whiskey for months before I was like, I should probably get paid money for this. And that was like, then I worked for Macallan, Highland Park, and some of the other
And would
companies.
you say that when you started doing that project was when you started to feel like the most fulfilled within your...
Yeah, I would be taking vacations to go to Scotland to work on a Macallan project and stuff like that. I was like, I could do this. But also, like I said, I wasn't an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur would have gone day one and been like, fuck them all, let's roll. I'm going to take a risk.
So what sparked you, though, while you were doing this project to realize, like, oh, this is what
I
I
matched
can
my
do.
salary in freelance money. I had bought a Z3M coupe, my dad's old car. I'd bought an American one. But I got to breaking point. I mean, I was working till 3 o'clock in the morning every day.
Well, I was going to ask, like, sometimes when you have, like, a boss that's gaslighting or a negative experience, like, it might be right in front of you, like, you need to take the leap, but, like, you can have the most self-doubt that you've ever had in your whole life.
100%, yeah. I mean, I had a huge amount of self-doubt from it. And Ken was working to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why aren't you going forward? And I'm like, I don't think I'm good enough, because I had that self-doubt that was being injected into me. And so that's why I have this torn experience of Oakley, because, man, if I'd just done 5 years there and it catapulted me forward, we would be in a lot bigger building. Like, but I had this, you know, similar to a relationship that isn't working right. Like, you're still sort of attached to it. And that happened with that job. So it's not a negative by any means look back that I have, but I certainly realize errors that I made, but they all ended up here. It's not a regret.
I was going to say, but sometimes the fastest way to learn, or no, not sometimes, but always the fastest way to learn is by doing
and failing
Yeah.
fast.
I don't remember anything satisfying from the last three and a half years there.
Right.
Every project that I got to, essentially, I mean, there was we finished off metal injection molding of titanium. It was supposed to be the rebirth of X Metal, which was one of the most iconic things Oakley's ever done, and we were bringing it back with fucking horsepower. Like, the designs were insane. They looked like bird bone structures. And we had proven the whole thing out. And then Luxottica was just like, nah, we don't need to do that. It seems risky. And they would just kill 2 years of my life. I was at Oakley. I wanted to start giving myself an identity. It was the start of Instagram. I butchered that because I decided a blog was better. But I realized I did have opinions on stuff, especially things that were done shit or done really well. And I really noticed, because of Oakley, the details, like when people cared about chamfers or radiuses or corners or hinges or the feel of something or the click or whatever it was. And so I started writing about things that I thought were disruptive and uncommon. I don't remember where those two names came from, but that became Discommon. There was a cell phone case company back then called Rockform that machined like different stands and cases and stuff, and they were fucking exceptional. They had hinges and little clicky things and stuff like that. I wrote about them. I did write about different
so you were a
client
design
projects.
block. Like
Yeah. I mean, I wrote about.
I didn't know that. That's.
I mean, I had like a solid, like 43 people that read it. And then the
Wow.
first thing it started as after that was me and a guy called Jimmy Castro. Don't know where he works now. I think he went to Microsoft, trying to make a ratcheting adjustable money clip. And at the same time, I was using a carbon fiber tube supplier to make cigar tubes. And I still have some of those, and they say Discommon Volume 1 on them, which is pretty poignant.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
And then Jeremy, he was a business partner in Discommon Goods for a long time. Now he works with us in engineering.
Business partner at Oakley, right?
No, he was business partner in Discommon Goods to begin with. He and I started it. He's an engineer, or design engineer. So he and I started making stuff, the razor, the pocket knives, the whiskey tumblers, that type of thing. It was all people from Oakley that helped me get it started, the designers and engineers there.
When did you send the pocket knife to
Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
I'm going to go
Was it just
like
randomly? Did you just-
2016, probably 2015. No, he was the second customer. Tom Hanks' assistant was the second customer of Discommon. They bought 8 watch wallets for the wrap of Road to Redemption or something. I forget. It's a movie now. Anyway,
Something.
I just noticed I was selling it to CAA 3100 Avenue of the Arts, Los Angeles, and I was like, I'm gonna Google this. Her name was Suki Waterhouse, and I was like, she's a badass. She must be. So I Googled her, and she came up on IMDb as Tom Hanks' assistant. So I just wrote her an email, and I was like, he's for Tom Hanks. And so he's got a bunch of our products, and then when we finished that knife, I ended up sending it to him, and he's got one of the largest typewriter collections in the world, and he wrote me a typewriter thank you letter that says, Neil, this knife, I can do so many things with it. Cut vines in the jungle, defend myself, stab things, open things, something like that. Very Tom Hanks.
Did you read it in Tom Hanks' voice?
Fuck yeah, I just tried to, but yeah.
So would you say, like, while you're blogging, that's going on?
That's giving it more credit than it's due.
Whilst
I was
that's fascinating to me.
typing mediocrely.
Sure, but what would be Discommon's first thing?
The first Discommon Goods thing that ever got sold to somebody was cigar tubes that I milled with a local machine shop in Southern California. Then we made some coffee tamps. Weirdly enough, that I almost sold to La Marzocco, which would have been wild, like day one. But then when I decided we're a company and we're getting PR representation and we're going to try and get in stuff, that was the watch wallet. The watch wallet with a cut and sew place in Baltimore called Sew Lab was the first product. Like, we had Squarespace, we shipped. There was a PR launch. It went on blogs, that type of thing.
Do you remember? Go ahead.
So I would say, were you just shipping out of your garage? What was that process like?
Yeah, it was all through our house. I was still working at Oakley. I mean, I was shipping at lunchtimes and stuff.
Yeah, taking calls.
But I forget exactly what I did, but I somehow garnered every email address that was in my Gmail, and I tried to steal as many email addresses from my Oakley account as I could as well. And then I sent a group email to everybody on that saying we were starting something. Would they join our emailing list? It's cool, Teddy. I can take you to marketing school at some point in time.
Yeah.
You're nodding with yeah, boy. Yeah.
You're like,
you
hell
did
yeah.
this.
What's your ROAS?
So our email list had
What's your open rate, bro?
500 people on it to begin with. These were
qualified leads.
these were club promoters in LA that I'd given free sunglasses to and all sorts of different things.
Do you remember your sales whenever you did the watch wallet?
We got through 100 watch wallets pretty quickly, and they were $380 a pop. So I was like, oh man! But then I just spent all of that making razors and other stuff,
So what was your process of finding out what you wanted to make next? Were you
So we had my George Yu, who's one of the designers at Oakley still, Kyle Pinnell, Nick Garfias, who's the head of design at Oakley, Jeremy, me, maybe a couple other people. We all sat in my house and we had a whiteboard, and I've still got a picture of it, and it was like, well, what are Discommon Goods? And it was basic shit reinvented to just be executed much better. Men's essentials, but do it with passion.
Interesting.
It's not wavered that far. It was stuff that I wanted, so we just executed the hell out of it.
Right.
What I think really differentiates your products from others on the market though is there's like a beautiful design element, but it all has functionality?
I mean, almost every one, the goal was for it to be a sculpture. We made a pretty funny error with Lowball 1, the whiskey tumbler. A complete cult item. I mean, there's a couple, maybe 300 in the market. I get emails every day asking for whiskey tumblers. But it looked like a giant cock by mistake. And I really never, ever saw it. And George Yu, who's very senior at Oakley, would still to this day tell you he had no idea it looked like a penis. But we designed it to sit in the crook of your hand. And it sits in it
Just like a
really.
penis, so you could stroke the dime.
Just like.
And
a
when I
penis.
defended it one time, I remember a guy on Instagram being like, "You literally just described how you hold a cock," and I was like, "Oh fuck! I have no defense left.
Damn.
I actually don't know what to say to this." We've made the phallic error a couple times actually as a design
It's
firm.
okay.
So you're all right. So at this point, you're in California making your own products.
You're just doing goods, right? At this point.
No, I was consulting to Mophie
Okay.
for product development, but we weren't a design firm.
You weren't. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I got so frustrated with getting given. I know what the kicker was. We got given an ice ball making machine from a company called Barber Osgerby in London. They did the Olympic torch. Like, they're a dope firm. I'd still like to work with them again. But I was doing the development of the product. I was the curator of it all for the Macallan. And they handed over this design. I know how much they got paid for it. They got paid £180,000. And it wasn't possible to make it real. Like, it was an imaginary shape. And I was like, this is fucked. I'm failing because they sucked. That's not fair. And so then I just literally decided in one go, we're an ID firm now. And I got one of the designers that I knew to freelance in. And then the next time around, I just said, we're the design firm. And
so you took out the bottleneck. The bottleneck.
yeah,
was
the bottleneck
that-
was I had no control over that. And so
Yeah.
what I did was then we did the Highland Park's last, it's still current product, 50-year-old bottle. And they wanted an iconic designer for it, and I managed to get the head of design at Ducati to do it, but I said, I'm managing him. So I managed the whole project. So he was my designer per se, and we designed an incredible bottle to be made, which was like, all right, fuck, this was all a series of like coincidences, which is sometimes why I look at people who are starting businesses and I'm just like, gosh, you have such a plan. Either I was a complete idiot, or, the old adage of like,
blind male optimism.
or the greatest plans, or plans are great until first contact with the enemy. I can tell you, or
Then it can
it's great to have a plan until you get punched in the face. So like, I got punched in the face a lot and just decided to adapt. We got punched in the face. I mean, the company today, a year and a half ago, I would have said we were an ID firm wanting retainers or wanting design, or wanting companies to pay us to design. And I just got broken. I got exhausted waiting for the 7, 8, 9 months it would take somebody to sign a contract. And I was like, fuck that. We'll just design now, but we'll actually make the thing. So now more often we actually end up showing designs to people and we're manufacturing it for them, because the first time that we made like proper revenue was manufacturing accessories for a medical company.
So while you're like doing these projects and these things, I did want to ask, because people don't know, and I honestly don't know, it's not just you as you're doing this, it's you and Kevin,
Me, Kevin, and Jeremy.
Jeremy.
but Jeremy left at a point in time.
No, so Jeremy left before Kevin. So Jeremy and I were business partners in Discommon Goods. Jeremy is an outdoorsman at heart, and I was definitely pushing down a luxury avenue. And we ended up seeing an opportunity where I helped him get a job with Leatherman in a really cool sort of skunkworks group. And it was just better for the both of us. Like, it was hurting my soul that Jeremy wasn't kind of as fired up as I was. It was hurting his, that he was having to do things that weren't his soul. And I mean, Jeremy would say this if he was here. I hired Kev full time. We were working on stuff. There were other freelancers working, and then Jeremy came back at some point in time. He was like, "Hey, I fucked up. Kind of miss working with you guys." And so that was pretty cool because it rounded off. And we all mountain bike, and I just knew as soon as he said it, I was like, "Yes, this will round this shit off." Like, Kev and Jeremy shred on mountain bikes, so like we're immediate. I am the last man. They can't pedal uphill as fast as me, but I just see them disappear into dust on the way downhill. So that was really exciting for me because I knew that we had a team already.
And how did you meet Kevin?
We Instagram dated.
You DM'd?
Yeah, I slid into
Yeah.
his DMs.
Yeah.
Little cocky little shit. Posted a picture of a McLaren P1 with like the most cliched thing, which was quick afternoon render, when he
Oh.
clearly had spent like 6 days
That's
rendering
the
this
most
P1.
Kevin shit I think I've ever heard.
Yeah,
But
Kevin.
here's the wild card. Son of a bitch had done it in an afternoon.
Of course. he
Oh,
has.
Oh, so it wasn't like he did
So
it.
he really was.
So the
Kevin
first project I did with Kev was a car table. We did a Ford GT. I was like, I want to make this crazy ass table, and it's going to cost me a bunch of money, but I need you to, if you really made that shape of that McLaren P1, help me make a Ford GT,
Right.
and let's turn it into a table. And I freelance paid him for that. Then he freelanced for me for 2 and a bit years. He was taking vacations from his job, flying to New York to have meetings with Butterfly with me, so that I had a designer. Yo, it was mad looking back on it. Like, we were hanging on by a ball hair.
Yeah.
And then I was scared. Like, I take the responsibility of someone's livelihood very seriously. You guys have seen the glimpse of that with me. Like, you have, the protective side of me where I'm like, all right, we have to set you guys up to be safe. But I didn't want to full-time Kev. Actually, we were driving back from a event in Scottsdale, Arizona, with this table in the back of his Subaru. And on the 8-hour drive back, we hashed out like, we can do this. Let's
Yeah.
go full time. It was pretty cool.
I think
Shout out, Kev.
I think what we should segue into with Discommon, and this is a big part, more for you, not really Discommon, but it's
We
2019.
can do it briefly.
It's COVID. There's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
Most stressed I've ever seen you.
The most stressed I've ever seen you in the
This is a
coffee
good
shop
video that we made.
office in my life. I've never seen you more stressed in my life.
This was actually
Because
when I met Neil.
This is right when you
I
met
went
Neil.
from dealing with $100,000 to $1.5 million coming in and 1.459 going out in a day. Like,
right.
so
So you it's COVID, and I want you to walk people through that don't know what we're talking about.
okay,
How you figured,
I made a
this
lot of
out.
masks,
yeah.
and I slept. I didn't sleep well then, but I sleep well now because I did it with integrity, fairness, and I did it right. So there's a lot of shit going on back then. There was like, crazy price gouging, fraud, just the wild. I mean, I saw shit for a lifetime of stories. NFL players trying to sell hospitals here in South Carolina, like 64-cent masks for $5, but they're holding them hostage because they know a guy. I mean, wild shit. And so we were making the butterfly accessories at the time, and we've got a guy, Wade. We have an employee in China. And at some point in
I
time,
met Wade.
shout out Wade.
Shout out Wade.
Wade is
Gee.
the man. He is,
from Wade Hampton.
Wade is currently working on something for Glenturret whiskey for us, which is pretty cool. It still works for us. He goes, Neil, I want to send you some masks for your family to make sure they're safe. This is when America had no masks. And I was like, sick. Where are you going to get them from? And he's like, Mr. Neil, like, you manufacture in a medical factory. Like, they make masks. I'm like, yeah, but there's none in the world, right? And he's like, no, Mr. Neil, like, I don't think you understand this. Like you're a customer of theirs. Like, they have production runs. Like, you can produce. And I was like, well, I want to donate some to their hospital here to Prisma Health, like 10,000 masks or something like that. Ended up getting in touch with Prisma. Like, now looking back, and it seems like minutes. It was probably days, but minutes later, I'm in a socially distanced conference room. And the order went, I guess.
It's the most awkward spaced conversation you've ever had.
It was wild. They were like, who the fuck are you? How can you do this? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know that I can do this. This
He's
is
got
just what
some
we do.
really cool connections.
I did some really, really scary stuff with money. Like, said yes to an order that I shouldn't go into the numbers here. Got a production plan from Asia. Matched that to like the deposit amount. And I built an Excel sheet of when I deliver, they'll pay another chunk. So I matched the 2 weeks of shipping I don't know how to explain this easily, but I got a first chunk that paid for the first, let's say 4, 5, 6 production runs. They were only able to do X number a week. And I was like, well, it's going to be 4 weeks on the ocean. We might airship some. So in 4 weeks' time, I'll start getting paid again when they deliver. And I mean, I went from probably 600 grand in the bank account from a deposit to like $2,100, knowing that the next morning a wire should clear. And that happened 4 times. I mean, it happened endlessly for like 6 months. I went from broke to not to broke to not to broke to not,
And,
each
like,
time
slowly
chipping
you're
up,
just climbing
and it's
a
just
little
chipping
And you're
up,
just
up,
stacking
making a
up.
bit, because I was doing
But every
cents
time
on
you
the
go
dollar.
back, you're like, is it gonna end?
Yeah, like,
now?
am I gonna get?
Yeah, and I was
fucked?
doing
Yeah.
so I was doing cents on the dollar, because it's, it's our hospital system here, and like I just couldn't do that. That's just not how I'm wired. Like my mom passed away. Like I'm like imagining my mom. Like I have
Right,
integrity. I
right.
can't like capitalize. I don't have the capitalism in me that some people had. I mean, I know folks in Miami, 2 guys, they got a contract from the US government for 1.6 billion masks. 2 dudes that had no fucking right to have it. 1.6 billion masks to restock America's like inventory.
Did they fulfill?
They set up a factory. I don't know that they ever fulfilled, but they weren't frauds.
But it seems like on your end, producing wasn't the issue; it was shipping.
It was the issue for everybody, and we had an amazing
Right.
shipping relationship. I mean, we can touch on, but there's a good video. Obviously, we borrowed a Boeing Dreamliner 3
But you
times
see, this
from
all
Boeing.
this all goes back to Clemson.
Yeah, it does. So our PR, one of the girls that worked in our PR firm in California happened to go to Clemson. She got us a contact there, and they got us in touch with Boeing, and they were like, sure, do you want a Dreamlifter? We're not building any planes. I'm like, that's a fucking big plane.
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah.
biggest plane that had ever landed in
At
GSP?
GSP, yeah. They've had a
Yeah.
747
Wow.
land. So GSP, for anybody that's not local, is Greenville Spartanburg
Right.
Airport.
International, bro.
It's international
it's
airport
international.
because there's a
Private
cargo
jets?
flight to Mexico. No, there's a cargo flight to Mexico. PJs go to Canada, and once a week they get a 747 from London that is a cargo flight because there's an inland port here. I had seen the 747 and I was like, maybe we could land a big plane here. That's a good story. That's longer, so we won't go into it. But like, we missed the first cutoff for the pilots to have time off. They flew to Hong Kong to pick up the first run of masks, and it got stuck in Chinese customs,
Oh,
and they had to
yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
when I had an
no way.
aneurysm, and my wife found me in a ball on the kitchen floor in tears, having a panic attack.
So wasn't it the Chinese government decided that they needed to be repackaged? and
No, the Chinese
relabeled?
government was getting reamed for so many fake FDA things coming out, and we were buttoned up tight. Like we were dialed. Everything FDA was legit through how we were doing it, but they just basically decided in an afternoon that they were going to individually check every box of masks leaving the country. Absolute madness. We ended up paying a guy to riverboat it from China to Hong Kong completely legally.
How did you find a riverboater?
Mr. Chow.
Shout
Mr.
out
Chow.
Mr.
Mr.
Chow.
Chow will never not be on the
So
tip of
that-
my tongue.
So that conversation.
So
was
I
like,
never met-
We know a guy. like,
that was Wade's like, I got a dude. I never met Mr. Chow, but Wade has promised me we're going to drink. I've just forgotten the name of it. The crazy Chinese rice liquor. We're going to go drink with Mr. Chow when we go back there.
Sake.
Kevin doesn't drink very well. No, it's not sake. It's like gasoline.
Oh, it's like absinthe.
Mr. Chow fixed it. And
Sure
I
did.
remember AIT, they're a massive global transport company. That's who we used for everything. I'm on a WhatsApp call with the guy. He's standing at the dock in Hong Kong, and his jaw just drops. And he's like, there is a fucking riverboat with 3 40-foot containers on it. And I was like, do you have a crane? And he's like, I mean, we're ready. I'm like, take the containers off. They got to go to the plane. The pilots are going to time out and we need to fly. It was madness, dude. It was
Wow.
the craziest thing
and
ever.
You, and you
And
got
all the time, I'm like, at any point in time, I can go completely broke and
right.
lose our house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
And
is-
then we sold some to Walmart, and then I wasn't broke anymore.
How did that happen? That's what I've never known. Is how did Walmart find out about your bullshit?
I don't even
and
know what I'm
go-
allowed to
and
like
go,
share.
Let me buy some from you.
I have an amazing money manager. Shout out Clay, who manages my money as a charity because him and I have fun and he likes cars. Clay manages some serious money. It came to me through a brilliant sort of friend and athlete, George, in the city here. He's a cyclist. Clay manages somebody's money at
Sure.
a big
whatever.
supermarket.
Yeah.
And made a text introduction. And I had, at that point in time, landed a dream lifter in GSP Airport. Like, it was a
You were the
fairly
shit.
good resume.
Yeah.
I won't fuck you.
Yeah,
And there
you-
was
yeah.
what was the pressure like with the random? I feel like it was last minute, just huge politicians rolling up hearing about what was going on. And
At
then
one
they
point in
just-
time,
you're
at one point in
just
time,
there.
Pence was going to come. So, like, 7 or 8 when we landed the plane at GSP, I was in like jeans and a polo shirt, and
Lindsey
showed-
Graham's there, Tim Scott's there.
the whole, but Mike Pence was supposed to come down for it. Something happened where they were like doing a COVID test or something like that. But they were all there. They all came down to take credit for this thing that nobody knew was happening.
And that you did.
I mean,
The stat
yeah,
is that
Yeah.
I did do it. I want to be like, well, there's a whole team involved. No,
You did it.
no, I
It
bled.
would-
said
yeah.
it's
I-
the
I-
largest shipment of personal protective equipment to ever land in the state of South Carolina ever.
I don't think somebody had done a bigger one in America. It was madness.
Yeah.
I can't, like,
wild.
Now, can we talk about real quick?
Wait, real.
But like,
Yeah.
I just need to, like, for folks that are game for entrepreneurship or risky things or challenges or anything like that. Like, I measurably aged myself during that year, and I lost parts of my life, like, sentimentally, like, that I can't get back. Like,
Yeah.
some people spent a year getting to play with their kids in their backyard, getting to spend family time, getting to go on walks, all of those things. I mean, I tried when I could, but I was in a fucking wave and I could not get out. I was in a tsunami.
Yeah.
And I look back at it with pain as well. It damaged my life. Now, it gave financial security.
Do you think the financial security is worth
No.
the time you lost? No. Tell me why.
I don't know that I could do that without getting emotional. Like, I lost time I can't get back.
What would you have to say to people who are in maybe similar situations with high stress levels to high financial
Or
gain?
just people in
with
general.
Okay,
trying-
so I'll give you a deep statement that probably wouldn't fuck me up too much. I realized only fairly recently, at a period of time I had with my kids for like 9 or 10 days, Meg was out of the country, that I was enough. And I know that's a very simple statement, but when you're an entrepreneur, you're essentially defined by what you're achieving, what you're winning, what you're getting, what you're bringing in. And at the end of, it was the last time I was taking the two kids, my two kids to school, but Letty G and Isla. Isla was like, "Yo, Dad, like, you did above a mediocre job on this. Like, this past 10 days,
Yeah.
their mom Meg was away in a yoga camp, and I was like, I kind of want to do more of it. Like, can we try and spend more time together? And that is completely undefined by work.
Yeah.
Whereas every other interaction in my life is to do with, like, what do you do? How do you do
What
it?
have
Like,
you
tell us
done?
a story,
Yeah,
whatever.
Why should we trust you? Yeah.
And there are positive parts, man. I got to buy a sports car. I got to start playing this trade up sports car game.
Yeah.
I adore driving. Driving is my therapy. I don't give a shit about the flex of that. I care about going onto a mountain road, and the only thing I can think about is changing gear or driving. But I hurt my life.
Overall, with everything we've talked about, is, what's a piece of advice that you would give to someone just who wants to carve out their own career path like you have, not even in design, just in general, wants to be an entrepreneur and define their own destiny with their career?
It's about the people, not the money. That's one. And the other one that I try to give quite often when I think of folks younger is, don't blindly chase your idea without analyzing if your idea is any good. Because your idea, everybody's like, oh, chase your dream. Your dream might be shite. That'd be a really fucking bad business to start if you had a shit dream. So, like, put some strategy in place. And I will say that one thing that I've done that I look back on with comfort now, I never had eggs in one basket. So we were consulting when we were making product. We were making product when we were trying startups. I've got this kids watch company Block. Like, I had good revenue at that time when I was starting that thing. Like, I always had multiple paths going to make sure everything was safe. So when I hear somebody be like, I'm going to start a wallet company, the only thing I can think of is, well, you're making no revenue for the first 3 years. So what's your plan? Like, what can you consult on during that period of time to make money? Because, like, safety is number one.
What if for the
He's
sake
smirking.
yeah, because it's good. For the sake of making this a time capsule, what's a piece of advice you have for your kids?
Ooh.
Time matters. I think one of the things that has bothered me about looking back at maybe the last 20 years is, like, my parents could cherry pick to the year, like 1993 when we were in Ibiza, 1996 when we went to Mallorca with your aunt or something like that. I can't remember fucking 9 days ago. Like, our pace of life is so fast. And with the opportunities given, each one somehow is bigger than the other. That, like, at their age, or, you know, at 10, at 15, at 20, at 25, like, even you guys, like, I'm sitting fucking 17 years ahead of y'all. That will go fast, but it is also so much time to do stuff. And I think I just want my kids to understand how much. We always talk about time moving fast, but how much time is an asset for them as well if they use it carefully.
That was Neil Ferrier. Neil says that he hopes to begin designing and manufacturing furniture in the near future. He's excited for this new chapter for Discommon as they go back to their grassroots of making their own functional goods wrapped in art. Thanks for listening to Paid Time Off. We'll see you again soon.